Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next session. I am about to hand you over to the very capable hands of Gal Biran, who joins us from Crowdvocate. So over to you, Gal.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rose. And so happy to be in this event. It's amazing to see all the people participating in all the great sessions. Today, so my name is Gal. I'm the co-founder of Crowdvocate. And today we're going to talk about streamlining customer marketing with associating it to the journey, to product insights, and how all that can impact advocacy and upsell. We're going to talk about the art and science of engaging your customer base at scale across their life cycle. At the end, we'll have some time for Q&A, but before we reach that, I'll touch a little bit about an intro to Crowdvocate, the pillars of B2B customer marketing, 4 tips to get started, nothing to do with software or tools, streamlining engagement across the journey with data, with insights, and then turning all that into a more automated, scalable activation of your customer base for advocacy. And lastly, how do you tie all that to revenue influence, and how do you basically leverage referenceability and advocacy for revenue and upsell? So let's dive in. Gravikate is really the only purpose-built platform for customer marketing that can also be leveraged by product marketers. It's a holistic approach to manage advocacy programs, manage lifecycle engagement, upsell expansion, but also reference automation, loyalty and rewards gamification if you want to do that with your customer base, managing user usage of content and the attribution. So how much does that influence the business, and really the journey tracking and tying it all together. It's a holistic approach because we believe that customer marketing is holistic. For us, customer marketing is everything post-sale. We had sessions before that talked about onboarding and adoption. That's right, that's part of customer marketing, because on top of what customer success does, customer marketing can be engaged with scaling adoption, scaling content to your customers. You have events, user groups, cabs, all that stuff, communities, right? So you might have several different communities, you might have user forums. Engaging all those and leveraging the data from those is part of what customer marketing can both do to collect data. Imagine taking data from community who's active and then using that for advocacy, and also bring in data to the community and help people go into the community and be more active. Of course, there's different types of advocacy, reviews, customer stories, a lot of things around that, talking to analysts. And there's also voice of customer feedback and input. There's references, right? Reference calls, reference content. And then there's lifecycle marketing, such as upsell and the overall communication of activities, events, and whatnot. And the thing is that for your customer, that's all just one thing. It's part of their engagement with you as a customer. It's part of their life cycle with your product and with your brand. They don't see those as pillars. They don't see those as different departments. They don't see those necessarily as programs, right? They are a customer of product X. And within their journey, they onboard, they join a user group, maybe they're in your customer advisory board, maybe they're active in your community, maybe they can do now a review or provide a customer story or take a reference call. At a certain point, they're relevant for an upsell. That's their journey. That's how they see it. That's how you should see it. That's how you tie all the pieces together. But before you do that, when you get started, here are 4 tips that we've seen work with all our customers and in general. And it really talks about not starting with a product, but starting with a plan. So, or with a platform, but starting with a plan. So first things first, you have to define strategy and KPIs. What is your year 1 goal? What are the numbers? And it has to be numeric. It has to be, what are the numbers you need to reach at the end of the year? Maybe that's the number of advocates. Maybe it's the number of upsell revenue or campaigns that you've run. Maybe it's the number of people that participated in reference calls, or the number of deals that leverage reference calls. Maybe it's the number of new customer stories, or the number of new customer stories only for enterprise business, only for this very specific new product that you're launching. But it has to be numeric, because that's what you're going to be measured on, and you have to agree on that with management and your buy-in. And the best way to start with that is understanding what is the company's KPIs. And and deriving from that. So if the company really wants to focus on upsell of this new feature, of course, customer marketing program should support that. Then you want to collaborate with everybody. You're kind of the quarterback. Customer marketing is the quarterback. You're talking to internal marketing teams because you need their help, and they need your help in demand generation because demand generation needs content that customers can generate. You're talking to sales because they need the references. Customer success maybe needs to approve and help you get more references. Product teams can help you move more messaging and also get feedback. And of course, you have to have executive sponsorship to run these programs. Then you want to talk to your customer. That's the third tip. Talk to them directly. When customer marketers don't have direct access to customers, it's not good. You want to be able to talk to the customers, find and reveal your own champions, not just trust on account managers or CSMs to tell you who the champions are, but also try and find more accounts and more people within accounts that maybe people didn't realize there are champions. And you want to consult with customers, maybe only your top 20, but have customers like kind of your cab, but your internal cab, the customer marketing cab, that tell you what can work, what they're willing to do, what rewards should look like, what programs they think are cool. You want to have your own consultants within your customer base. And the last tip, of course, is measure and share it. You have to track, like we said, and measure numeric results. And then you have to blow your own horn. You have to let all the organization know how customers are influencing, how customer marketing is influencing. Those are the 4 tips to get started. Now, once you've started, let's talk about how you engage the journey. So this is like a basic, typical customer journey. Maybe customers, they start working with your product, they have a welcome message or whatnot. Then they kind of go through some kind of journey of onboarding, knowing the product. At some point, they're activated, they're users, maybe after a month, maybe after 3 months, doesn't really matter. And then you start turning them maybe into advocates. Can you write a review? Can you participate in these events? Can you speak in the events? Can you, write a story, give us a quote, and so on and so forth. And at some point, you might even want to advance that journey. Hey, we'd like to have you on our customer advisory board as a consultant, or maybe you could be in our beta group. And at some point, maybe, hey, your company should actually, or could actually upsell or cross-sell or whatnot. So, but you want to tie those together. Now, the way that to do that, or the way that Gravikate does that, is it ties that journey to data that the company has, right? So, for example, CRM data, like what is their account, what is their industry, what products they have and what products they don't have. So you know what to upsell them to. How frequently are they using the product? Are they satisfied? What is their health score? Taking all that data from CRM and other data sources like BI or whatnot, and then adding all that data to the journey data. Hey, they logged into your community, they're active in the community, they're contributors. What does that tell us about them? Or they're in the academy, they finished the courses. What do we know? They're certified, right? They're active in the blog, they're interested in specific types of content, in the knowledge base. And of course, in your product, they log in, they're active, etc. So combining all those data points gives you a really holistic picture about your customer's journey and also the data about the account in the company. And that's really how you can then tie it all together and engage the journey in a contextual manner. Different people with different titles in different countries using different features of your product in different stages of their life cycle should and could get different messages that are relevant to their journey. And that's how you basically activate them, because it's contextual to them. It's personalized to their journey, to where they are with your product and with their journey. So that basic product journey that we talked about, or lifecycle journey that we talk about, becomes a much more insightful journey. Hey, we know that they're in the product, and we know that they're also advocating because they share a success story, and we know that the account upselled, and we know that they're also in the training portal, but they're also doing a review. And it becomes a timeline of data, time, CRM data, advocacy activities, and how each one taps onto another, because they're really going up on the ladder of engagement, the ladder of advocacy. They're moving slowly, and becoming more engaged, more advocates, more of your partners, not just customers, more of your partners within that journey. And that's what you want to track. And each time kind of raise the bar one more. Hey, you've been in the reference pool, I think you could also maybe speak in our webinars. You spoke in our webinars, maybe you could also speak to an analyst. That's kind of how you want to build those, right? And with data about your customers, you can do that. So you could basically know about each individual customer, where they are in their journey, because maybe the company itself has 3 users that the CSM engages with, and you know, 1 key contact that the account manager engages with, but really there's 10 or 20 or 15 or whatever, 7 users, and some of them are not engaged, but they love your product and they're happy to do stuff and they're happy to talk. They're just not the key contact people, right? And maybe they could be your Trojan horse, your go-to in that company when you want to do campaigns with that company, and only then bring in the more senior people. I get a lot of questions like, how do I tap into executives? Well, maybe you want to start with the lower people in that company who could bring you the executives or can bring them to the table. Or maybe you need to create different journeys for executives and for more, you know, for power users or junior users. But data and engagement helps you see all of that. And when you have data, then you can engage very personalized at scale. So you can say, this person, we're only asking them to speak in our events or be on our podcast or talk to analysts or whatever that is, but because of their title, because of their very specific use case, or that person from that company, we have to have them in our reference pool because they're one of only 10 enterprise customers that has in the retail industry that has this feature. We need them there. So that's what we're going to ask of them. But doing all that automatically at scale based on understanding their profiles, but also their journey, and then reaching out to them. And how do you reach out to them? You reach out to them everywhere and anywhere and any way. Because some customers would answer to an email, but only 20% of them might open the email to begin with. Some customers would answer to an in-app messages, but if they're very senior, they might never be in your product, in your app. Some customers would engage on Slack or by text or by visiting a designated customer portal or by seeing a pop-up when they join up to your virtual events. That's how you engage at scale. You don't tell them this is where you have to go or this is how we engage. You let them choose out of a facet of a lot of different engagement types. And you track all that all the way back into CRM, all the way back into understanding from this company, we have 10 people who are engaged, 10 people who are advocates. This is how they like to engage. This is how frequently they want to engage. This is what they're willing to do. This is how we're going to leverage them this month. And after we do that, we're going to automatically take them to the next level of the journey and leverage them that way next month. Last thing we're going to touch is how do you leverage all that to basically create business impact. So at the end of the day, customer marketing can influence all the pillars of revenue that SaaS companies have and most companies have. Customer marketers influence new business, new sales, because advocacy, by definition, influences new business and new sales because you have references, reference calls, customer stories or reference content. Even reviews bring leads to, of course, to your website. A lot of the advocacy activity influences demand generation and supports new business, right? And for most B2B companies, between 40 to 70% of the new business, of the new deals, touch advocacy. In some companies, it might be 90%, but I mean, in average, it would be 40 to 70% of every new deal, every new customer, in some way or form, touched advocacy. The second pillar of revenue for companies is upsell and expansion. Normally, upsell and expansion is roughly 20% of a company's revenue. And again, today, we've seen in the pandemic a big shift to that, and people talked about it, in the sessions before. Companies started to say, hey, but if we're engaging our customers anyway, and if they're in our advocacy program anyway, and if they're, our champions, why aren't we also leveraging that to do upsell? So, I mean, if they love so much and they're the most engaged customers, why don't we grow their share of wallet? Why don't we basically market to our existing customers, knowing their journey, knowing their engagement level, knowing their advocacy level, and turn them into even bigger customers? And for that, you also need advocacy, because you'll take a customer that did that journey and has a customer story of how they moved from feature A and added also feature B of your platform. And you'll take that customer story and serve it to your existing advocates who have only feature A and haven't yet also purchased feature B. So advocacy, customer stories and whatnot, even reviews, they all could serve also for upsell campaigns, cross-sell campaign, expansion campaigns. If you want to do expansion to another division within a bank, okay? You're going to use your champions in division A to move into division B, that's ABM. Why do a whole external campaign and try to target that bank in LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, when you could actually, you have champions just in a different division. That's how you leverage your advocates to grow and your customer marketing activities to grow upsell. And lastly, and research shows that the more customers are engaged, the more they're loyal, and we know loyalty programs from Starbucks to whatnot, the more they're going to stay and buy and repurchase. So advocacy and customer marketing basically influence, of course, retention. And you want to prove that as well. You want to show that from your accounts that are engaged, that are in your different customer marketing programs, some of them, ideally, 30 to 50% more retained than others. And again, that's how you can show internally to the business that all these programs have a business impact. They impact new revenue, they impact upsell or expansion or cross-sell revenue, and they impact retention revenue. But to do that, you have to track. So let's take the example of how you do that and how you track that with upsell. So picking upsell or upsell, basically what you want to do is you want to build at least some of your campaigns to be revenue driven. And we sometimes talk to customer marketers or advocacy managers and we talk about, hey, but my metrics is only how many advocates I have, or how many customer stories I created, or where do we stand on reviews versus our competition. Those metrics are great, but they're not at the end of the day the metric that your CRO or CMO or CEO really look at. Because at the end of the day, you have to tie it somehow to dollars. So you can add for example, an upsell campaign where you basically say, okay, I already know my customer, engaging in so many different activities. Why don't we take a cohort that is available for an upsell right now, right? And product marketing and customer marketing should talk about that and define that cohort. And within that cohort, let's see who are our champions, right? And then we're going to do a nurturing campaign like we do maybe on our email marketing, but only in customer marketing frameworks, where we're going to educate them about this new feature. And we're going to, even survey them as advocates or customers engaging in the programs about their pain that feature solves for. And then we're going to give them social proof from another customer within the program that just did that journey and did upsell. And then finally, we're going to ask them if they, are okay to talk to an expert or sales and make that lead inside Salesforce or CRM. So we actually can track the fact that we've generated an upsell lead, right? Same way that regular marketing generates new business leads, which are MQLs, and then sales turns them into SQLs. So think of, instead of, marketing qualified leads, CMQLs, customer marketing qualified leads that then move into whoever needs to close those. And then lastly, you want to measure that, of course. You want to be able to say, okay, how do I attribute that to ROI? And again, you have to track. You have to find ways if you have a platform and tracks it, that's great. If not, you have to find ways within your tech stack to basically know how many referrals turned into deals, and how many references influenced deals that closed one, and how many upsell campaigns turned into opportunities, revenue, closed one. And you also have to agree, even with your internal teams like sales, how much of that is attributed back to you, just so you can say, listen, this is the revenue we influenced, and this is the direct attribution of revenue that we can have, because that helps them. And the easiest way to say that is to say, listen, can we agree that 1% of every deal that customer marketing influences, that advocacy influences, is associated or attributed to customer marketing? Most sales teams say, sure, 1%, who cares? 1% out of, $100 million is $1 million. Not that big, but you could at least attribute that and show we influenced 50 million and we have direct attribution of 1 million, right? And maybe that also tells us what the budget we should have. But maybe you can talk about 2% or 3%, but it helps run the numbers. So with that, I kind of covered a bit on, if we started like what is customer marketing in our eyes and how it has to do with the entire customer journey and the entire pillars of touching customers, whether it is within communities, as part of their onboarding, as part of taking them to the next level as advocates, as part of then taking them to the next level as customers and doing an upsell or expansion, of course, retention, but really tapping into the customer journey, right? Because that helps you then grow the lifetime value of each one of those customers, both their share of wallet with, again, cross upsell, but also the lifetime value because they brought in 5 or 10 or 25 other new customers because of their advocacy and because of all their activities. But if you can track and show that, that's how you show the value of customer marketing. And you also grow your internal resources and team and whatnot, but you also really align the organization to understand that customer marketing is that quarterback and that all the teams need not only to come and ask customer marketing to help, but they also need to help you to grow the business. And with that, I'm going to stop. I hope this gave you some food for thought. And I guess we're going to open this up for a few questions.
Absolutely. Thank you for that fantastic presentation, Gal. So we've got a couple of questions that I'm going to put to you. We've got plenty of time to run through them. So when you are scaling a customer marketing strategy, how do you maintain that level of personalization required to really kind of show value to each of the customers that you're working with?
I love that question. That's great. So you're right. I mean, we talk about relationships. We talk about generating, personal relationships and whatnot. So how do we do that at scale? And I talked about the contextual journey, and I think that's really the answer. So let's take an example of, Sarah, whatever. And she's a customer, right? And you want to create a personal relationship with her. If you know with data, right, data-driven relationship, if you know that her NPS is high, she's satisfied, and she's super active in your community, so she's a contributor in the community, and she's done all your training and certifications already by now, so she's an expert really, then if you reach out to Sarah automatically at scale, but still with a personal message, hey Sarah, amazing, you're one of our top contributors in the community, and you're the expert. You did all the trainings possible. You're a superstar. We have to have you in our customer advisory board. And you probably wouldn't do that for the customer advisory board. So we have to have you in our reference pool. Or we really want you to join the reference pool because you're such a champ or an expert. Or we really want to hear your story or a video testimonial because you're probably one of our top experts. Can you do that? That's a super personal message, super contextual to Sarah. Really is at scale based on data and understanding her journey. I hope I answered with that.
Yeah, very thoroughly. Absolutely. So there's a couple of comments as well about how customer marketers can struggle to really demonstrate their business impact and kind of prove ROI. Do you have any tips to share on that?
Yeah, so I think, it definitely is a challenge. So, the easy answer, which I'm going to say, but then I'm going to also go to the more harder question. The easy answer is, find technology that supports that, right? Tech today, at least some of the tech can track everything from UTMs, tracking links and knowing if they were used. And of course, for example, Crowdvocate connects into the opportunity within CRM and tells you how opportunities leverage references and how opportunities leverage content and even, with reviews or referrals brought in deals. So, tech helps do that. But generally speaking, again, if you're not using tech or you're just starting on this journey, I would really start tracking the dots. It's harder without tech, but for example, you do know how many references you served, right? So let's say in a quarter you serve 20 reference calls, whatever. You can see how many of those reference calls closed won in CRM. And you can say, listen, out of those 20, 15 closed won, and they had a customer call. So I think we influenced that amount of revenue, and you do that report. And then you go to, for example, reviews. You could actually see with websites that track that, how many leads came to your website from G2. You could track that. You know how many came. So you could say, listen, I don't know how many of them eventually filled the form. If you use UTMs, you would know, but at least I know that 1,000 people in the month of March came from G2 to our website. And hey, those 1,000 people came because of the reviews we put up there. So, I mean, if you don't have the tech that supports it, you need to kind of do the reverse engineering of each and every activity that you do, referrals, reviews, references, stories, and try to create the formulas that make sense in your mind. It's not going to be 100% accurate. It's not going to be all the data, but it's going to give you some kind of sense and a discussion to share with your managers. And hopefully when they see that, they say, okay, this is interesting. Maybe we do need to track it better and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any examples of how you would define a cohort of upsell customers?
Yeah, of course. So most companies kind of, and again, product marketers many times are involved with this as well, but I mean, most companies would kind of know their cohorts in the sense that they would say, okay, maybe we have a base product. And I'll take HubSpot as an easy example without, just because I hope that people know their products. And this is not saying that this is their campaigns. I'm just giving it as an example. So, I mean, if HubSpot has a CRM product and they have a marketing product, and they have a sales product, and they have a customer success product. Basically, they have 4 product lines, if you want to call them like that. Now, they probably know that if you have, or they have their own kind of notions of if you have CRM, maybe we first want to upsell sales, or maybe we first want to upsell marketing. And that would normally be the cohort. So they would say, okay, if I have a customer that's using CRM and they're with us for, let's say, at least 3 months, and it seems like they're power users, so maybe they're logging into CRM once a day. I'm making all this up just as an example. And they log into CRM once a day. And not only that, they also basically are, maybe they filled an NPS and they're happy. And we see they also have whatever 5 users in there. Okay, I think it's, a good match to start upselling them to our sales platform. Maybe we'll start with our resales platform. Maybe we'll start with our starter plan or whatnot. So, I mean, that's a debate. What do you want to take them on first? And you can do trial and error. But basically, you want to know from each one of your product lines, what is the next best match of upsell? And then to the people within that product line, after a certain level of, again, time they're in the product, satisfaction, experience, usage, hit that upsell track and button and run it through for 2 weeks, a month, whatever, and see what happens. And again, it does take some trial and error, but on the other hand, it's also pretty straightforward. You have to do the thought process beforehand. It doesn't have to do anything with technology. You first map the dots of who should be upsold to what based on their situation, and then you just play the campaigns.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Some great advice. So final question just before we wrap up. Are there any adjustments you would make if your customer contact is C-suite level versus a mid-level manager?
So I think, yes, of course, the answer. There are many adjustments you want to make. So you want to make adjustments in the sense of the message, and you want to make adjustments in the sense of the channel, and you want to make adjustments in the program. So if it's middle range practitioners, whatnot, then yes, gamification would probably work for them. And you could ask them more. Maybe you could ask them something once a week or once every 2 weeks. And you could do that kind of in multiple channels and, even inside your product and inside your community, because they're going to be there. So, the channels that you're going to engage, and the messaging could be, hey, we love your support and we love what you're doing with us. And, we know about your activity and we'd love to have you as an even bigger champion, bigger contributor and whatnot. But when you're thinking about managers, C-level, whatnot, it's totally different. The programs and the messaging has to talk a little bit about exclusivity. Suddenly they're not like everybody, right? It's a more closed program. And the channel should be maybe first an email. Maybe even the first approach should come from their CSM or from their account executive, and only then the intro and you step in. And it should talk about what's in it for them, less from, here's a gift card or you're a great contributor or whatnot, but more about how it influences their personal brand, their company's brand, how it influences what they can achieve as managers and show as results within their organization, not with you. So yeah, those are different things that you, I think, want to look at.
Absolutely. So I just really want to say a huge thank you, really informative session and some great kind of questions and further information that you shared there, Gal. So finally, just before we call it a day, where can people get in touch with you if they want to kind of follow up?
Well, you know, I'm on LinkedIn too much of the time. So they're welcome to connect me on LinkedIn. My email is here, gal.biran@Gravikate.com. We'll be happy to connect with anybody from the customer marketing and product marketing sphere. And thank you so much for this amazing event and this opportunity.